Okay, hi everyone. This is David, and welcome to today's live chat on the research proposal, how to write one. We'll follow our usual procedure. I will present for about 5 to 10 minutes and then open it up for all of your wonderful questions on this topic or any other that you wish to discuss today. Okay, let's get started on how to write the research proposal. First, we want to ask ourselves, what is a research proposal? I want you to know that it is simply another academic document. If you can write a literature review, you can write a research proposal. If you can write an abstract, you can write a research proposal. If you can write a research paper, you can write a research proposal. It's simply another type of document. And if you have a template, and if you follow the formula for a research proposal, yours will come out just fine. Next point. In a research proposal, you have two audiences. The supervisor who will approve and either delay or give you a go-ahead on the research proposal, and yourself. You are attempting to persuade two people, that supervisor, and you are trying to persuade that supervisor of two things. Thing number one is that you have a legitimate research topic, that you have a legitimate research plan for addressing that topic. And three, that you understand the importance or the role or the significance that your research plays. The other thing that you're trying to convince people of is you're trying to convince your supervisor or your committee that you have what it takes. You have the tools, you have the knowledge, you have the preparation, and they should, if they're being decent people, they should approve your proposal. So those are your two goals in a research proposal. A third goal that it doesn't apply to that audience is yourself. You are also attempting to prepare yourself. You are getting ready to do something. To do that thing successfully, you need to have certain ducks in a line. You need to have prepared yourself in certain ways. We're going to go over those ways in just a moment. Keep in mind that this is a planning document. And as it says here, with great planning comes great success. There are other famous people who have talked about this. No one plans to fail, but the person who fails often lacked planning, and so on and so on. If you want to get where you want to go, if you are determined to get there, you will need planning. And this research proposal is simply a step in your direction toward what you want to accomplish. Okay, next, let's go over the basic template or outline for the research proposal. Now, keep in mind that the university where you are getting your or writing, doing your research, as well as the department and the supervisor, all may have very different guidelines. I'm just saying this is an overall view of what is in most research proposals. They usually begin with a title page. The formatting of that title page depends upon what citation style that you are being expected to follow. Then will come a table of contents or an abstract. Now, if you're writing on the undergraduate level, your research is probably not going to be long enough to justify a table of contents or an abstract. On the master's and the doctoral level, it's probably long enough, especially on the doctoral level, to have a table of contents. And of course, that's something that you write last. You will have an introduction section, and that is a general section. You will generally have a literature review section unless your degree program had you write a literature review separate from your dissertation. That happens sometimes. More often, the literature review is incorporated in the thesis or the dissertation. You will address your research design, often called the methods, in which you will plan out certain things that are necessary for the research to be valid and a success. You will also have a section on the implications for your research, its importance, its need for follow-up, etc. You will have a section on your sources. This will be your references, your bibliography, whatever it's called. And then finally, you're usually asked to present some kind of schedule that indicates that you have the proper time allotted for each of these steps. Again, this is just the general overview or general template for the parts. Let's go ahead and break down these different parts. Before you begin, you want to define your topic. How do you define your topic? Well, first thing that you can do is to look at successful theses and dissertations from your school. What kinds of topics were most successful in your discipline? And you'll get some ideas from those, especially how to structure your title. You will review the academic literature. This is a part of writing your research proposal. It's also a part of defining your topic. Make a list. You don't have to come up with a single research topic immediately. It's okay to write down a list. And then eventually, as you narrow, you might even combine items on that list into one research question. And then, of course, show it to somebody else to have them help you evaluate the efficacy of your research question, research problem. Finally, after you have gotten some kind of approval, and I hope that your thesis committee, your thesis supervisor will provide you feedback on your research question, your research topic. After you have gotten that kind of validation of it, make your decision. And as you move forward, it's okay to modify it, but don't change topics. Once you have settled upon that particular topic, sure, there'll be revisions, but you want to stay put. Not staying put is a red flag to your supervisor and also can put you way behind. Also, changing your topic is often a signal of anxiety, a lack of confidence, and you definitely do not want to show those things at this important stage in your academic career. Next, you want to study the methodologies. As you are reviewing those different theses and dissertations, as you're doing a preliminary research literature review, you should be looking at the kind of methodologies and the kind of data analyses that are taking place. And that will help you settle upon the methodology and analysis that is best for your topic and within your capabilities. Next, you want to, and this is so important, you want to acquire all of the requirements, all of the details, everything that you can collect about what your dissertation or thesis must look like, how long it should be, how it should be formatted. You want to collect everything you can collect. And then those guidelines from your department, from your thesis committee, from your supervisor, those become your Bible. They supersede anything anybody else will tell you. They are your living will, so to speak. So acquire everything you need. Make sure you understand exactly as much as you can what your supervisor wants and what your committee wants. And then give it to them good. It's as simple as that. Find out what they want, then give it to them. Okay, next, let's start breaking down these parts. I always encourage everyone to begin with a good title. This is a habit that I have found very helpful, that if I can get a good title, then I am assured that I have a strong handle on my research. So let's take a look at the requirements or the characteristics of a title for an academic research project. Your title should contain the following things. You want to cover the topic, the who, the population, the overall context, and what methods you're going to use. In other words, to get those four things into a single title, your title's got to be long. And this is why the titles of academic research articles are long, is because they must contain, as much as possible, those four things. Here are some examples. A randomized controlled trial. There you have the methodology. To improve research skills, there you have the topic. In young adults with autism spectrum disorder, there's the population. And you're going to be doing it with the UCLA Peers Program. There's the context. So do you see how that title incorporates all four of those things? Now, not all titles do this. Some emphasize some aspects of some of those four more than others. For example, there's another title, Institutional Analysis, that somewhat hints at the methodology. So it's going to be like a descriptive study of limitations to climate resilient urban development planning. So there's the topic, there's the problem, there's the context. Limitations to climate resilient urban planning. And here is the population. The case of Udon Thani province. So this title has 16 words. The previous one had 19 words. Take a look at this one. It has 17 words. So if you average those up, you get an average of what, 16 and a half words per title? How to tackle complexity and urban climate resilience. There's the topic and the context. Negotiating climate science, adaptation, and multi-level government in India. There is the population. So I encourage you, before you do anything in terms of writing your proposal, make sure that you have a solid title, because getting a solid title is going to force you to think about population, context, methodology, and as well as your topic. It will also force you to narrow it. Next section usually is the introduction or the background section. A couple of things to keep in mind here. This is an overview. You're giving simply an introduction to a person who doesn't necessarily have your depth of knowledge. So you're focusing on the broad topic. You're focusing on key concepts, key terminology. You're just kind of painting the canvas, so to speak, with a lot of the details of that image, of that picture to come later. So this is just an overview. This section should also contain, now that you've told the overall topic, now you bring your reader down to the specific topic. This is where you state your research problem. This is where you talk about the research gap that you will be addressing. This is where you make a case for your research significance, because your research significance or research gap is one of the primary criterion on which your supervisor or committee will either approve or disapprove your research proposal. This section should also contain your research aims and your research objectives. Here, a lot of students get tripped up on the difference between, the key difference between aims and objectives. Aims are goals. That's where you're going. Objectives are things you're going to do to get there. So an aim might be to investigate how to improve social skills in autistic young adults. That's your aim. That's your goal. Your objectives to get there might be to collect a group of autistic young adults and divide them into an experimental group and a control group, to devise a 5-week program of study using a UCLA peers program. So those are your objectives. Those are the things you do to get to your aim, to get to your goal. Now, in your introduction section, you need to make this clear distinction between your aim, your overall goal, and the things you will do to get there, the objectives. Research question and sub-question. The research question usually is a single research question on some of the smaller projects, a senior graduate thesis, maybe even some shorter master theses. However, on some of the larger projects that are multi-sectional, you're going to have not just one research question, you're going to have a main question as well as sub-questions because of the depth into which you're going in your investigation of this topic. Okay, so there's a little bit of a preview on introduction and background. Next, let's talk about the lit review. The literature review in your research proposal is different than the research review in your final research project. This is a preliminary research literature review. This is a provisional literature review. So therefore, in this type of literature review for your research proposal, you want to review only key works. And your supervisor will help you find those, a librarian will help you find those. You want to find the seminal studies that provide the framework for any discussion of this topic. Your goal in this preliminary literature review, your goal in this provisional literature review is to provide an overall context for your topic. So it's much shorter than your actual literature review when you write the dissertation or thesis, and it has a much different purpose. Okay. One of the purposes that you will have, even in this preliminary research review, and this is one of the key purposes, is why you're kind of writing it now, is to find that research gap. In other words, and the research gap is nothing holy, it's nothing major. The research gap is simply where you fit in this academic conversation. Are you writing something to complement someone else's finding? That's a legitimate research gap. Previous findings need to be confirmed. They need to be replicated. That's a legitimate research need. Are you writing to answer a weakness in the current research? That's a gap. Are you writing to challenge something that has been found in the research? That's a gap. So there's nothing magical about this gap. It's simply finding your place where you join in this conversation, academic conversation, in a unique and significant way. In other words, it counts for something. It answers the question, so what? And the answer to that question, so what, is, well, I found, and this is important because, and that's all a research gap is. Don't overthink that at all. This is also where you're going to examine and highlight the methodologies and data analyses that were done by others. You want to say, well, in this descriptive study, or in this experimental analysis, or in this correlational analysis, you want to highlight the kind of research designs as you are reviewing these literature key moments. Why are you doing that? Because you are setting up yourself to say, if these other people use these kinds of methodologies, then I can use them too. And that's why you want to highlight research methodologies in your literature review when you're talking about what other researchers did. The important thing for your sanity and for your success that you're doing with this literature review, you are initiating your catalog. If you're going to write this extended piece of research, a thesis or a dissertation, you need a way to catalog your sources. Why? A lot of time is going to pass. Some dissertations take multiple years. There are a lot of different sources, 100, 200, 300. Therefore, your old methods of simply putting things in a Word document are not going to hack it. You need to get yourself a bibliographic management tool, such as Zotero, EndNote, Mendeley, EasyBib, BibMe. You need to get yourself a tool that will allow you to keep a searchable catalog of all the sources from now in your research proposal all the way to the end when you finish your project. So those are some of the things you want to accomplish with the literature review. Let's talk briefly about methodology. Here in methodology, you are not expected to be, because this is a research proposal only, you are not expected to be an expert in this particular methodology. You want to simply demonstrate that you have a basic understanding of the different kinds of research methodologies and that you have a good understanding of the one that you wish to apply. Why it fits, this is important, why that methodology fits what you're doing. That's your main goal here, not to lay it all out. So ask yourself whether you're doing a qualitative, quantitative. Those are the two big divisions. Whether you're doing something that involves numbers, quantitative, or something that doesn't involve numbers. And then after you've gotten that figured out, are you going to be doing descriptive research, where you describe the characteristics of a thing or a population, correlational, where you find out how two variables interact, or experimental, where you follow the scientific method. So you need to kind of place yourself into one of those broad categories. Not showing expertise, but just that you understand the category you're going for and that you understand why it fits for you. And that's what this next bullet is about. You need to indicate what data you're going to collect, from whom you're going to collect it, how you're going to go about collecting it, survey, research, analysis, and why you're going to collect that specific data, why that data is important for you to achieve your aims in this research study that you're doing. And finally, in this section, you want to indicate how you will analyze that data. You're going to indicate how you're going to analyze the data because your research supervisor or your committee is going to be determining, and you yourself are going to be determining, whether you are capable of carrying out that kind of data analysis. So being able to talk about it here in your methodology section will adequately indicate, or should adequately indicate, to someone reading your proposal whether or not you are skilled enough to carry out that kind of analysis. Okay, finally, you want to end up with some kind of management program to show that you can handle this, whether it's a Gantt chart or a simple Microsoft Word table or an Excel table. You want to indicate that you have a plan. This plan should be adequate, give you enough time, I should say, in order to carry this out. This is where you will get help from your research supervisor, and you should make it as realistic as possible. If you're going to change your plan, you need to notify people that you are changing your plan, because these are more or less deadlines. And you want to show good faith. You want to show good discipline, a good control to your supervisor and your committee that you have made a commitment to these deadlines and you are carrying them out. You're meeting your deadlines. Of course, if you have problems, check in and make some adjustment, but do it in consultation, not just willy-nilly on the fly. Okay, a final checklist. Make sure that you have that good, strong title that is 16, 17, 18 words long and indicates who, what, when, where, and why. Have a clearly defined research problem that indicates a research gap, and your aim or your ultimate goal is clear, as well as how you will the objectives you will use to achieve that goal. And remember, your objectives have to be measurable. In other words, when will you know that you have achieved those objectives? Uh, in your methods, have you given enough about your methods that other people would be able to replicate them? Because remember, that is the purpose of the methods section, to indicate the validity to other researchers. And so that if they carried out your methods, they would arrive at essentially the same results. By the way, that's why we skip methods whenever we're reading these scholarly articles, because your goal then is not to replicate. Your goal is to understand. And is the timetable realistic? That's your checklist. Okay, well, are your references catalog? Yeah. If I were a thesis and dissertation supervisor, and I am at one school, there's no way that I'm going to let anybody go forward unless they show me that they have a handle on all of their references. If you're not able to handle your references, then things are going to blow up for you eventually. Okay, well, let me end this and get back to our screen here. Well, hello, a lot of people have dropped in. Hello, Fadumo. It's good to have you here. DD Hawkins. Great, DD. And by all means, we're about to enter the question and answer section. And by all means, please feel free to, DD, answer any questions you need. Salama, hello. Missed you last week, Salama. By the way, I recorded your absence, and you get 3 unexcused absences. Mr. G, excellent point. I wish you would explain how to use theory to write a theoretical. Sure. Let's get to that in a minute, Mister. Let me go ahead through there. Hello, Dr. Taylor. Happy to be part. Great to have you, Emmy. And Techley Miriam. Great to have you here. Techley, may I say that? And Musa. Okay, great to have all of you. Well, let me go ahead and try to answer some of these questions. I'll go ahead and put Misters up. How to use theory to write a theoretical conceptual framework. Let me ask you a question, Mister. And by the way, it's question time. So you guys, for your questions, go ahead and type them in. Let me ask you a question, Mr. G. Where are you getting this, I don't know, pressure or encouragement to add in theory? Because I'm usually usually research proposals are pretty straightforward. Research proposals are built around a conceptual framework. Now, we can talk about, and you should talk about to your supervisor, what your conceptual framework is. In other words, what kind of study are you doing? Are you doing a descriptive study, a correlational study, or a experimental study? Those are the kind of concepts that you should be thinking about. Now, if your supervisor is asking you to include a chapter on determinism or positivism or something like that, that would those are good ways to introduce your methodologies. In other words, I believe in positivism. That's why I have chosen this method. That is why I believe this data would be valid, that kind of thing. So let me know if that answered your question. I get the feeling, Mr. G, that you're just at the beginning. And to further answer your question, I would need to know what is being said to you. Because remember, it's all about pleasing your supervisor. It's all about giving them what they want. Okay. Let's see. Perfect timing for Kevin. All right. How's it going, Kevin? Okay, here's a question from Thach Nguyen. Let's take a look at it. Hello, doctor. I'd like to ask about the structure of the literature. Yeah, I am a little bit confused whenever I review the relevant theory and how to set that out. The structure of a literature review. Unfortunately, Thach, I'm sorry, there is no set structure to the literature review. You have to find your own structure. For example, you could structure it by chronology from early to late. You could structure it by breakthroughs, first breakthrough, second breakthrough, third breakthrough, fourth breakthrough. You could structure it by problems. Here are works that address this problem. Here are works that address the second problem. Here are works that address this third problem. Basically, let me say this. Any structure that you find is probably good enough because you must find your own structure. You must find a way to link those items together. Let me know if you have a follow-up question on that, Thach. Musa, freehand English writing. You mean, I guess I don't understand freehand. Normally, when I understand freehand, it means writing with a pen or pencil. Am I misunderstanding that? I'm sorry if I am. Tell me more about what you're saying there, Musa, and I'll be able to comment it on more specifically. I guess I can take this down, can I? Okay. Salama. Salama. So I have to use literature review to analyze novel. Is that right? No, not at all. Salama, thank you for asking that. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Your analysis of the novel is to come later. The purpose of a literature review is not to use it to analyze something. The purpose of the literature review is to provide adequate context and background to situate your research within a community or within a conversation. So there are two types of literature reviews, Salama. One is the literature review that you do for your research proposal. And that again is providing context. You do key works only. And the second type, and you also use it to come up with your gap in your context. And the second type of literature review is the one that you do for your actual thesis or dissertation. And there you try to gather all of the significant published academic literature on that topic. And throughout your literature review, Salama, your goal is simply to provide what other people have said. You can criticize them for what they said in that literature review. You can link things together and show where they're strong or weak. But no, in a literature review, you do not provide your analysis of the novel. You only provide your analysis of the literature you have read. Aaliyah, do replicating empirical analyses need theoretical framework? Depends upon your supervisor. I would say yes. That if you are conducting a research study and the goal or aim of that study is to replicate someone else's analysis or someone else's research, then yes, yeah, you want to have a theoretical framework for that. Any research that you do, you want to have provided a theoretical framework. It sounds like with an empirical analysis, your framework is descriptive. Aaliyah, if I did not answer that well, let me know. I was kind of taking a guess as to what you meant by theoretical framework. It seems like that a number of you have been hit with this theoretical framework question. A second. Yeah. A theoretical framework might be required in that theoretical framework, and it sounds like some of you are being required to write one. In that theoretical framework, you're trying to describe the theory that explains why that research problem exists. And that's often found in the social sciences. Um, in the theoretical framework, you are making problem statements and research questions such as company X is struggling with the problem that many online customers not want to return their subsequent questions. So that is providing your research question as well as a framework for your research. I think it sounds like also like you guys are confusing theoretical framework with the methods section. Let me ask this. What theories are you guys thinking about putting into your theoretical framework? Kevin, I'm going to do my research problem on the efficacy of retention efforts on the LGBT students at my university. Okay. That would be a correlational study, Kevin. You got two variables, the retention efforts and the LGBT students. And you certainly have a specific population. You have a specific context at your university. I think that's a pretty strong general topic. Now you have to turn that into a. I first turned it into a title. You'd say something like a qualitative or quantitative analysis of retention efforts for LGBT students during the academic year 2021 at such and such university. That could be a decent title. You got a good start on that, Kevin. You've also got to find a research gap on that. In other words, I'm assuming you're in the field of retention, student services, that kind of thing, academic services. And so one of the areas that you'd be looking at in your literature review is how do universities retain students? What are the most efficacious, most successful retention efforts? Is it assigning tutors? Is it making sure everyone has a success coach? Is it having meetings periodically of students in different groups? In other words, you want to kind of have an overview of the retention efforts and how successful they have been in the past. And then after you have acquired all that, then you can turn to your school, your population, LGBT, and your efforts. But I think you're on a good start there, Kevin. Aaliyah, thank you, doctors, very helpful. Does replicating period theory? Oh, okay, we answered that. I think I just had that question above. Yes. Um, so tell me a little bit. Are you writing a research study in which you are trying to replicate an empirical study? Is that correct? And by theoretical framework, I'm assuming that you mean uh, one of the kinds of conceptual frameworks that we have talked about. Asat, should I outline some probable subtopics where my research could go if it plays out like additional sources available as a probable separate publication or expansion? Okay, let me ask you some questions. Are you writing a doctoral dissertation? If you are writing a dissertation, then I would not call them subtopics at all, Asad. I would call them a research question and sub-questions. Topics is too broad. So that is my feedback there. And you want to make sure that other people have looked at your research question and the sub-questions which flow from it, and that those are legitimate and expected and flow together or connected together in a legitimate way, is what I'm trying to say. Musa, writing good on any topic. Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. Happy to do that, Musa. Happy to do that. I think I have a pretty strong video on that, and I'll be happy to kind of put that information together. I've also found a formula for writing each part of the essay, a formula for the intro paragraph, a formula for body paragraphs, and a formula for conclusion paragraphs. So I can share a formula for the overall structure as well as formulas for the different parts of an academic essay. Be happy to share that with you. And this is where I get my ideas for these live streams, Musa. The reason I'm doing this research proposal today is that someone asked about it last week. So I will definitely put that down for next week. Your basic academic essay. Got it. Mr. G, thank you, doctor. I'm writing a thesis for your degree. Oh, you're in social. That's why you got all this theoretical framework. You're in social sciences. That's why. Okay, I thought so. So you're writing about minorities. I want to use CRT theory along with ethnic conflict theory. The point is that I don't know where to start. I'm going to have to take that under advisement. Can you tell me where you are in your research process? Have you written a research proposal yet? Have you been asked to write a research proposal? Could you answer that question for me, Mr. G? It really does seem like, and somebody else can chime in on this, that the writing here is getting hung up with theories. And I would say maybe you could put off the theory for a while and focus just on writing the parts of a research proposal as I outline them in this lecture. And then once those other parts are clear, Mr. G, I would say that at that point, you can go back and take a look at how to add in more of a conceptual theoretical framework. But I think you're getting caught up in the generalities, and you need to move on to the specifics and then circle back. Okay, other questions? Best Boo. Hey, Best Boo, good to see you. Keywords, yeah. I left out keywords, Best Boo. That is often a part of a literature review. I didn't go into them. By the way, you can find keywords in every relevant article that you find. It's going to have an abstract and keywords, and you can often mine those articles for your keywords, as well as when you do research in a library, it often has a list of the keywords associated with that particular article that you found. So keywords are not hard to find. And yes, you should use keywords to help you get into the literature. But let me say that once you get started finding good things, Besboo, the best keywords are the ones that previously worked. In other words, keywords can take you on tangents unless you are careful. Whenever you find a direction into the research and you're finding what you want, I would stay hooked into those keywords at that point. Chin, hi Chin. So literature review is to recite the research in the past. Yes, yes. Recite it, evaluate it, connect it, challenge it. The literature review is all about what people said in the past. Yes, sir. And you allow it to give you a direction for the future. Let me give this example. I'm about to meet my college roommate that I haven't seen in 20 years. And I go, hey, Neil, God, it's great to see you. Man, I can't wait to catch up. Tell me, what have you been up to? Right? And Neil tells me what he's been doing for the last 20 years. And then once I've gotten all those, understand those past 20 years, then I can say, hey, you know what? Let's do something new. Let's take all of that and let's build upon our relationship by doing this. And I know we can do this well because we have all those past things in common. I don't know if that was a good analogy or not. Okay, Salama. Yes, Salama. Yes, I'm assuming, Salama, you are writing a thesis or a dissertation. Is that correct? If so, then you're good. You're good to go. Okay, Thok. Thank you, Doctor, for your explanation. I have one more question related to the literature review. Can I use the theory from the books or textbooks, or I need to use it all the time? No, anywhere you can get it, Thok. Anywhere you can get it. By the way, your literature review is not limited to articles only. You also want to be looking at books and textbooks. Absolutely. Whatever you can find. You can also look at unpublished theses and dissertations, which don't fit into the books or textbooks category. Aaliyah, my work is quantitative and I am replicating someone else's work using data from different. Perfect. Then, yes, Aaliyah, you would go through the same steps. Thank you for providing that clarification. You would go through the same steps as any researcher would do with your research proposal. Yes. And your research proposal is to replicate your research problem. Is this valid research? And you have your methods all laid out for you, unless you're going to change them due to your circumstances. I mean, you're going to replicate them as closely as possible, but there might be certain things that need to be changed. They're not necessarily going to affect the results. You know what I'm saying? Excellent. I'm glad you have that topic, Aaliyah. In some ways, it makes it easier. But you are, in effect, because you're replicating a study, you are, in effect, repeating that study. And that means you kind of start from scratch and work your way through it. Is that what your supervisor has told you? BESBOO, how to avoid a risky research topic. How to avoid a risky one? I think by risky, you mean one that ends up not working. Very simple, BESBOO. You have a solid research proposal like the one that we have outlined in this live chat. You get feedback on it from your supervisor, your committee, and you keep revising it until it's really strong. The second way you can avoid that kind of disaster that you're talking about is to always be in touch with your supervisor and to have him or her or them take a look at your work in progress. Uh, no surprises. You want to avoid surprises when it comes to your supervisor. In business, we had a saying, no surprises, no bullshit. Excuse my French, but that's the way it is. You never want to surprise your thesis advisor, and you never want to give him or her bull dookie either. Musa, theories are those related with my title, my research problem, and related concepts will be placed in developing theoretical framework. Are you in the social sciences, Musa? It sounds like that in in this portion, what you're doing is saying the kind of research that I'm doing is valid. How I am doing it is valid. The manner in which I am doing it addresses my research problem. And as long as you are doing those things, Musa, you are fulfilling your theoretical framework. I might want to write down and maybe do a session on theoretical framework because it sounds like some of you are definitely getting hung up on it. In other words, your journey into theory here is become kind of a tar pit, a swamp in which your feet are kind of stuck. And it's my experience that it's not that big of a deal. You simply choose one and describe how you're going to use it to solve your problem. So I might be missing the boat here, but I think I'm seeing some people who are seeing the theory part as a stumbling block, and it shouldn't be. The purpose of that theory is simply to provide you a framework in which to work, a framework in which to decide how to choose a group, how to go about analyzing the data, how to go about collecting the data, producing the data, how to determine if that data is valid. I think the approach to the theory that I'm seeing is not being related enough to the practical application that is necessary in order to carry out your work. Kevin, I'm basing it on a paper that I read about some similar. Ooh, Kevin, I got to go back up to your previous post to see what we're talking about here. Oh, here he goes. Kevin, here's your previous post, Kevin. I'm going to do my research problem. Okay. Yeah. All right. And I think you're at a great start. And then you wrote, I'm basing the paper read of so cool. And I bet you can find other papers that also studied retention efforts. I know since I teach at a university and I'm in student services, retention is something we live every day and are always studying and meeting and theorizing about ways to get better retention. So I'm sure you'll find a lot of studies about that. Okay, Ken, you mentioned context several times in this topic. Can you provide some example? It is such as geographical or social context. Sure. Yeah, context. I'm trying to think of a social sciences topic and then generate the context that I would expect around it. Let's say your social sciences topic is um, discrimination against LGBTQ students in high school phys ed classes. Okay? So you're interested in knowing more about the experiences that these students have in those kinds of classes. What is the context there? The context is severalfold. One, it is how LGBTQ students are seen as a whole as students, what rights they have, how are they being discriminated against in other venues, how are they being treated in other venues, whether it comes to bathrooms, uh, uh, misgendering, all those kinds of issues. Uh, what do transgender or LGBTQ rights look like in America today? That's context. How many laws are being passed for or against? Are there states where LGBTQs are more free than less? Here you go. The Supreme Court's incredibly important decision about recognizing gay marriage in what was that? I forget what year it was. That's context. That's huge context. But well, I'm assuming I'm talking about America here. I don't know what culture you are writing about, but in my explanation, uh, Ken, I'm talking about America. But that's context. In this case, social context. I hope that helps. I saw it. It's a PhD redundant. Someone. I'm sorry. I'd have to look back up to know what some meant there. Assad. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Let me look back up here. Oh, okay. It was about subtopics. I got you. I got you. I would say, Assad, focus on getting your dissertation done first and worry about publication second. Because writing for publication is different than writing your dissertation. When you're writing for publication, you have to conform what you're writing to the guidelines of a specific publication. And I would not worry about that now. That's a different audience. You want to please the audience that's before you right now. And that audience is your dissertation committee and your dissertation supervisor. Please them first. Reach that milestone first. And then you can take that core of what you did. Then you can adapt it, customize it to other publications. Okay, Leah. Oh, here we go. Art history. If you were to write about is it like semiotics, which makes decoding art piece? Well, if you're going to use semiotics in your dissertation on art history, well, certainly you would have to discuss semiotics in your introduction. That's for sure. Semiotics is a French invention. Forget the philosopher, I think it was Derrida. And Derrida formulated a new way of categorizing phenomena. And has often been used to analyze literature and other pieces of art. Basement, thank you very much. Aaliyah, great to have. Okay, theoretically, yeah, I will do, Aaliyah. Will do. Because it sounds like that it is a significant concern for a lot of you. Besboo, how do I know a PhD path to be changed? You're worrying You are projecting too far into the future, Bespo. You are projecting way too far into the future. This is what I was talking about earlier about choosing a topic, deciding upon a topic, and committing to that topic. Besbu, I think you are imagining yourself choosing a topic and getting in trouble with the topic and having to change the topic, or maybe trying to change the topic to get a better outcome. And I think you're thinking ahead. You do have to choose a topic. You do have to commit to that topic, and you do have to proceed ahead, full steam ahead, full full throttle, pedal to the metal, and know that along the way you will be able to overcome whatever obstacles you face. But I detect a lot of second guessing there. Assad, it is really hard to put theory into words because you don't have much choice anyway. We all do the same thing. It was never articulated by my seniors. Well, first I would say Google it. And then once you have a kind of basic understanding of it, then apply it to yourself. That's what it's all about, Assad. Yeah, sure. You can give a couple of sentences, maybe a paragraph defining that particular theory, and that's fine, and that's well and good, but it's no good unless you apply it to yourself, unless you apply it to what you're doing. That's where the rubber meets the highway. Hello, Sarah. How you doing? Jason. Hi, doctor. Nowadays, students have to write high-impact publication in order to graduate. Is that right? Yes. I did a live chat 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago on how to get published. I did not know that one of the requirements for your dissertation was to make it publishable. Thank you for telling me that, Jason. Here is what you do. You go find yourself a target publication. You write to the editor or look on the website and find the editorial guidelines for that publication. You ask the editor or find out what topics that editor is looking for in the future. And then you shape everything you write for that editor and for that publication. And if your thesis supervisors have a problem with that, then say, guys, gals, you got me caught between a rock and a hard place. You told me to write something that can be published. That's what I'm doing. And yet you're restricting me to your format done here in school. Which one is it, guys? Do you want me to write for you here in school, or do you want me to write for publication? Jason, if you go look on my channel, and if you look on the live chats, the live streams, I think I did that. You guys, somebody help me out. I think I did that live stream 2 weeks ago. So Jason, I did not know that was being required of you. I would say make a commitment to being published and go for it. And hopefully your supervisors will help you get that publication. Assad, thank you for the publication answer. I used to stay in PhD program was required to have 2 publications per dissertation as a must. So I have this in the back of my head all the time. What kind of publications were they expecting if you didn't have your doctoral degree yet? If you didn't have your PhD yet, what publications? I guess you were supposed to kind of publish something before you hadn't finished with it. I don't know. I am confused by that one, Assad. I have to tell you, I am confused. Brandon, hey Brandon, how different from the less of the literature will your paper have to be to succeed? Yes, you're right, Brandon. It would be considered inferior. That's why so much emphasis, Brandon, is placed upon the research gap. That's why so much emphasis is placed upon the unique research question, unique research problem. But then if you have that gap, if you found that gap, then you don't have to worry about being meaningless. By the way, once you finish with the literature review, Brandon, you put it away. Once you finish with that literature review, you're done with that section. And now it's time to do your own. You know, now it's time to do your own. Now you do your own study. You come up with a framework for that study: descriptive, correlational, experimental. You come up with a framework. You come up with a theory. All these people talking about theories that you're going to use, and you get to work on your own study. Brandon, what makes undergrad master do? Length and depth, Brandon. Length and depth. They're basically the same in their underlying structure, except, of course, one expects as you go up, more is expected out of the researcher. Besbo, I'm happy it is not what is happening to my topic. It's just general question in case I'll become a young supervisor. You're welcome, Besbo. You're welcome. Let me know however I can help. Helen Person. Jason, what's the difference between research gap and research problem? They're the same. They're the same, Jason. They're simply phrased differently. Yeah. One is phrased as a statement. One is phrased as a kind of question. Let's say, okay, let's take your research gap. Your research gap is knowing how to best retain LGBTQ students at a university. Not enough is known. There aren't enough studies that show successful retention practices. That's your research gap. And so you simply phrase that into a research problem. And the research problem would be something like, what will be the effect of blank, 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 blank retention strategy on the retention of LGBTQ students at a Midwestern university? So there's one is phrased differently, and they're used differently too. What is the difference between an open access journal and a no pay need journal? Peer review is less hard. Some people say so. It all depends. Some people, it depends a lot upon the journal. There are some open access journals that are as rigorous as highly respected in old peer review journals. With open access, I think you have to be a lot more careful about the journal's reputation than you do with more formally peer-reviewed journal articles. I'd just be more careful with its reputation. Brandon, how big are research gaps? Yeah, that's a good point, Brandon. In your research, as an undergraduate, master's, even doctoral thesis, in most cases, you're not looking for any kind of major breakthroughs. You aren't at that point in your career yet. You're looking at maybe you are confirming previous research. So the research gap is simply there haven't been enough studies done on this yet. And so you're confirming previous findings. That's a research gap. Assad, I'm confused as well, but I can see a lot of publications. I'm sorry, what were you confused about, Assad? I'm sorry. I can see a lot of publications in local journals. What are local journals? Of extra poor quality, published only for the sake of publishing. Okay, so you're expected to achieve a certain Scopus level. Scopus level, yeah. For those who don't know, Scopus levels are ratings given to peer-reviewed journals. They're usually published on the website and usually in the library holdings page. And I think overall, Assad, once you get into open access journals and local journals, I'm not quite sure what those are. I guess we're not widely distributed or on an international scale. Yeah, you do have to be very careful. But please remember, Assad, that it ultimately comes down to you and your ability to assess the validity of another person's research. And as someone on the master's or the doctoral level, you should be able to assess somebody else's research regardless of where it was published. That's the bottom line. Russian journals in Russian. Of course, you would have to have a pretty good Russian to make that work for you. But I would just say that just because it's not distributed internationally doesn't mean that the research there isn't any good, and that's really kind of your call as a fellow researcher. Okay, it looks like we've gotten through all the questions today. Thank you very much. What a lively discussion. I have come up with a couple of areas that I need to brush up on and get back to you on. One is a presentation on theoretical frameworks and how they become a part of your research proposal, and the other one is a formula for the academic essay. Okay. One last question from Jason, then we got to take it out of here. As I am in social science economics, and the economics issue found around me be the research problem. I'm sorry, Jason. We would have to discuss that a little bit more. It's kind of hard to give me enough context in just a chat box reply. Please feel free to email me. I'll put in my my email. I'll put my email in the chat box. And tell me more about what it is that you are planning on researching and writing about. Before I really feel comfortable in answering your question. Brandon, still got questions? Brandon, email them to me by all means. Happy to take your questions. But YouTube kind of limits me here. I got to get out of here. Salama, you're welcome, Salama. Thank you very much. Aaliyah, thank you very much. Asad. Oh, you're welcome, Asad. You're welcome. One of the reasons we're here. Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast, you guys. Susan, talk to you later. Let me hear from you. Anything I can do. Talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.